In the summer of 1914, Europe was a powder keg waiting for a spark. A complex web had been building for decades: alliances, rivalries, military plans. Germany was a new ambitious empire positioned between two major powers: France, to the west, Russia, to the east. German planners were deeply worried. They feared a two-front war. France was still bitter from the Franco-Prussian War of 1870. France had formed an alliance with Russia. Germany found itself effectively encircled. The strategic problem for Berlin was immense. The assassination of Archduke Franz Ferdinand in Sarajevo on June 28, 1914, the trigger. Austria-Hungary declared war on Serbia. Russia began to mobilize to protect Serbia. Germany, allied with Austria-Hungary, saw this mobilization as a direct threat. The German High Command had long-standing plans and felt they had to act swiftly. They couldn't afford to wait for Russia to fully mobilize. Their thinking: knock one enemy out quickly, then turn to the other. France was chosen for the initial decisive blow. Germans believed France could be defeated rapidly. Russia would take weeks to mobilize. This gave birth to a bold, risky invasion plan. The goal: invade France, encircle its armies, capture Paris, force a surrender within 6 weeks. Then pivot east to face Russia. It was a desperate, high-stakes gamble. The German solution to this strategic puzzle was a plan named after its original architect, Count Alfred von Schlieffen. The Schlieffen plan was audacious and based on a precise timetable. It was essentially a massive, swinging hammer designed to crush France. The plan called for the bulk of the German army, around 90%, to be on the right wing. That force would not attack France head-on. Instead, it would pivot through Luxembourg, then Belgium. The flanking move bypassed strong French border fortresses. It let German armies sweep down from the north, west of Paris, and then encircle French forces from the rear. On paper, it was a masterpiece of logistics. Animated maps show the incredible wheeling motion. The German First Army. The German Second Army formed the outer edge of the swing. They were tasked with the longest, fastest march, move with incredible speed, cover huge distances each day to keep momentum and surprise. Meanwhile, smaller German armies on the left wing held a defensive role. Alsace, Lorraine. They acted as a hinge, engaging French forces and luring them away from the main thrust through Belgium. The plan rested on critical assumptions. Belgium would offer little resistance. Russia would take at least 6 weeks to mobilize. Britain would stay out or be slow to intervene. Every part of this clockwork had to function perfectly. Any delay, any unexpected resistance, any miscalculation, all could unravel the grand strategy with catastrophic consequences. Tracing the paths on a map, the plan's ambition is clear. Armies advancing on a front hundreds of miles wide, like a giant scythe cutting through northern France. The outermost army marched in a huge arc past Brussels, then south toward Paris. On August 4, 1914, the Schlieffen Plan was put into motion. Huge columns of German soldiers crossed the border into neutral Belgium clad in their field gray uniforms and spiked helmets. The invasion immediately triggered one of the plan's first failures. Britain, honoring its 1839 treaty to protect Belgian neutrality, declared war on Germany. This brought the might of the British Empire and its professional army, the BEF. The German High Command, however, pressed on, famously dismissing the BEF as a contemptible little army. Their timetable was too tight to allow for any hesitation. The initial advance through Belgium was not the swift, unopposed march the Germans had hoped for. The small but determined Belgian army put up a courageous fight, particularly at the fortress city of Liège. Though they were ultimately overwhelmed, their resistance caused crucial delays. Every day the Germans were held up in Belgium was a day the French and British could use to reposition their forces, and a day closer to Russia's full mobilization in the east. Still, the German war machine was formidable. After smashing through the Belgian defenses, the German First Army pushed relentlessly forward into northern France, and the German Second Army pushed relentlessly forward into northern France, forcing the French into a long retreat, and the newly arrived British forces into a long retreat. This phase of the war, known as the Great Retreat, was a desperate race against time. Maps from this period show the Allied lines being pushed back day after day across a huge swath of territory. The French Fifth Army fought a series of rearguard actions, and the BEF fought a series of rearguard actions, trying to slow the German advance without being encircled and destroyed. The German soldiers, meanwhile, were exhausted. They had marched hundreds of miles under the hot August sun, often covering over 20 miles a day, with their supply lines struggling to keep up. The sheer physical strain on the men at the tip of the German spear was immense, and the momentum of the initial attack began to wane. By early September, the German armies were on the outskirts of Paris, the French government had fled the capital, and victory seemed within Germany's grasp. However, the plan had started to deviate. The German First Army, under General von Kluck, was supposed to sweep west of Paris. But exhausted and eager to engage, he made a fateful decision. He turned his army southeast inside of Paris, exposing his right flank, a critical error that Joseph Joffre would exploit. Just as Paris seemed doomed, the Allies launched a desperate counter-offensive on September 6, 1914. This was the First Battle of the Marne. The French Sixth Army, which had been assembling in Paris, slammed into the exposed German flank. Famously, some of these French troops were rushed to the front line in a fleet of Parisian taxis, a symbol of the nation's unified resolve. The battle raged for 4 days along a front stretching for over 100 miles. The overstretched and exhausted German soldiers were caught completely by surprise. Their seemingly unstoppable advance was brought to a screeching halt. The Battle of the Marne was a turning point. Confronted with fierce resistance and the risk of being encircled themselves, the German command lost its nerve. They ordered a general retreat, pulling their armies back some 40 miles to the high ground north of the Aisne River. The miracle on the Marne had saved Paris and shattered the Schlieffen Plan. The dream of a quick 6-week victory was over. Both sides, unable to land a decisive blow, now began to dig in. This was the beginning of trench warfare. What followed was the race to the sea, as each army tried to outflank the other by moving north towards the English Channel, extending the line of trenches from the Swiss border to the coast. The invasion had failed in its primary objective, and what resulted was a static front of mud, barbed wire, and machine guns. This stalemate led to years of horrific attrition warfare, exemplified by the Battle of Verdun in 1916. The German plan at Verdun was not to break through but simply to bleed France white by attacking a point of immense national pride that the French would have to defend at all costs. For 10 months, the two armies threw millions of men into a hellish landscape of shell craters and shattered forests, resulting in over 700,000 casualties for minimal territorial gain. Verdun became the ultimate symbol of the senseless slaughter of trench warfare. In conclusion, the German invasion of France in 1914, though initially successful, ultimately failed to achieve its strategic goals. Belgian resistance, British intervention, and a fatal tactical error at the Marne locked Germany into the two-front war it sought to avoid, setting the stage for 4 long years that would change the world.